If you're not having an epiphany every single week right now, you're just behind.
You're using OpenAI to audit your time?
Once we started implementing this, the next week, everyone locked in more. And it's very clear, by the way, whoever is sucking on the scores, they actually are sucking within the org too.
Is there stuff that you wish you would have known in the first year that you didn't learn until years 2, 3, 4?
If I had this information when I was 9 years old, I would have been off into the races. Right now you have podcasts like this where people can just get this direction for free.
What are the things that you're involved in day to day now that you think it would be a mistake, right? To not be involved in X, Y, and Z?
It's to be involved on the highest leverage things and not just sit and wait, because sitting and waiting and hoping is not a way to grow a business. You can try to run from this shit, it's still going to chase you anyway, so you might as well figure it out here.
This is Eric Siu. Now, Eric buys an agency called Single Grain in 2014 for $2. That agency now does over $10 million a year. B2B services, agencies, coaching, things where you sell your time and then eventually other people's time are the easiest way to make $1 million a year. And so we dig into using a personal brand to build an agency, the big delegation issues that get in the way of founders scaling to $1 million a year. And because Eric is one of my favorite people for AI use cases, we're going to talk using AI for sales, AI for hiring, and everything else it takes to build a baller business. Eric's a killer operator. I think you guys are going to enjoy this one. I'll see you in there.
The problem with starting entrepreneurs is that they think they can handle everything. And the saying is you can do anything, just not everything. And, 2021, we did these two acquisitions. We actually had like a software going as well. We were started doing too many things, but that's when I decided to bet harder on it. And there's a lot of lessons within that. So
what were some of those lessons? Stephen King, I think, says, kill your darlings. It sounds like you killed a couple of the darlings. What was that like?
I will say, we decided to focus more on the marketing aspect of things and where I've built my audience. And probably one of the biggest mistakes I made was in 2020, everyone on Twitter was talking about, what you do is you build a holding company and then you hire a CEO and then you get out of their way, right? That does not work 99% of the time. And so that's what we did. We hired a GM, and we had done this multiple times where like, oh yeah, it makes sense. Like, they're experienced, get out of their way. It's like, experienced leaders now know that is complete BS. And we hired someone who actually ended up stealing clients from us. They stole employees from us. They poisoned the well and said that leadership hates them. Eric's tanking the company, blah, blah, blah. And the ironic thing is that person ran the same playbook with the previous company. And they also ran the same playbook with the company right after that. And we had so much sympathy, right? Like, I was very much employee first, take care of the employees first, right? Customer second. And what ended up happening was it completely backfired on us, and entitlement grew a lot. And then you had leaders that were doing these things behind your back. And I'm not even going to blame them at the end of the day. Certainly there's some responsibility on that side, but you hear about delegation, but there's also abdication, and I abdicated my responsibilities. And what I talk about with Neil very often now is the way we run our babies is we just stay very involved, and there's just no other way to do it. And we haven't seen someone do it very successfully, just abdicating.
Yeah. What are the things that you're involved in day to day now that you think somebody else, their instinct would be to advocate, and it would be a mistake, right? To not be involved in X, Y, and Z.
I think you have to. This is interesting because I recorded with Neil yesterday, and he was just showing me his phone and how he gets involved with things, and he just creates these iMessage groups where he just starts. It's relentless, and when you're iMessaging, your messages are blue. It's a sea of blue from his side, and they're not. The other sides, the other people, it seems like they're scared of him, right? They're not engaging as much. But
I think Neil could be scary.
Yeah. Well, anybody can be. Like, when it's the boss, it's freaking scary, right?
Yeah.
He's just trying to get things done, and then his whole thing is. I brought this up with another level. I was like, look, when you think about companies like Flexport, for example, they have a biz ops team where they go in. It's like an elite SWAT team where they go in and they fix problems. And then that might mean firing the leader of that team. That might mean like restructuring the whole thing, redoing it, throwing the wrenches around a little bit and the hammer around a little bit, and then fixing it and then moving on to the next thing. And so I would say that's a specialty that I'm working on right now. Where are the biggest problems right now? What's the highest leverage opportunity? I'm going to jump in. I'm going to get involved. I don't care if you're the leader. I don't care if you have more responsibility or more experience than I do. The ones that care the most are like the founders, and I'm incentivized to care the most. And so I'm going to get involved. I'm going to help. And if I don't think it's moving quickly enough, like, I'm going to have a problem with it. And so I think in the past, what I used to do was say, oh, they've got experience. Let them do it. And it would take a long time to see, and the time wasted it was a complete backbreaker. So I would just say now, just to make it very simple for everybody, it's to be involved on the highest leverage things and not just sit and wait, because sitting and waiting and hoping is not a way to grow a business.
Yeah, this is fair. Yeah, I found I try to be very involved in like the 0 to 1 of everything we're doing. So like we just started maybe 2 or 3 months ago working with some e-commerce companies. We're still, 80, 90% of what we do is like with newsletters and personal brands. But like, e-com ads are like different than other ads. You got to ship product. So you now have to, onboard a bunch of creators. Like there's the execution of ads can be more technical. And so like I've now gotten I rolled up my sleeves and I'm back in how do you make a UGC video, right? And as opposed to just going, oh yeah, just go do it. I find that to be helpful. I found it to be stressful.
Yeah.
But
I think our job, if you're a founder or a leader, your job is to figure out what are the big, broken, or new things that only you can truly impact and jump in on those things. To your point, people are deathly afraid of AI right now. And some people just seem like they can't figure it out. But the narrative now we're saying is look, you can try to run from this shit. You try to run from it, it's still going to chase you anyway. So you might as well figure it out here.
Yeah. So you start taking the agency really seriously 4 or 5 years ago. You've had your kind of content flywheel you've had for a lot longer than that, though. The podcast, these other things. How did you start building those out? What was the moment to oh, I think we should start, because you're an SEO guy, right? Oh, I think we should start long form podcasts. And what did those first couple of months look like?
Dude, I think I started my first podcast, which is now Leveling Up. It used to be called Growth Everywhere. That was 13 years ago. So I've been doing it for quite a while. And then yesterday, Neil's like, how long have you been doing marketing school? I was like, 9 years, maybe coming up on 10 years. I don't know. This is before he met his now wife and then had kids and everything.
I was going to say, you guys are like an old married couple.
Yeah. But it's time flies too. And so I think for me, I realized, so at the time, one of the big entrepreneur podcasts was Mixergy. So Andrew Warner would always interview these entrepreneurs, right? And then this is pre Tim Ferriss too. And this is I was like, man, nobody's done this from a marketing angle. So I was like, I just want to talk to marketing leaders who are doing interesting things and maybe take an entrepreneurial angle as well. And that actually worked really well. It's the YouTube started to take off. If you look back at my old YouTube 12, 13 years ago, there's tens of thousands of views for some of these interviews where it's just the audio and it's just a picture of the thumbnail, right? And so my whole thing is, by the way, it took a while to get going. I always like to say that it takes 3 years to build an audience. The first year, I was only getting 9 downloads a day. The second year, I was only getting 30 downloads a day. But I will tell you, I got a lot smarter in those years because my rate of learning increased because I got to talk to these entrepreneurs or VCs that I normally wouldn't have been able to talk to. And the cool thing is we got clients from it. So I'm like, whoa, I'm learning a lot for free. We're getting clients from this. So I'm just going to keep doing it. And yeah, that's how we got started.
Yeah. That's how I'm trying to think about this thing, right? I'm because I get very if I do something, I get very intense about the metrics, the KPIs and how many people are seeing it. But I'm trying to kind of go, all right, well, the very worst case scenario is I get to hang out with cool people. That's the worst case scenario. How did you grow in the beginning? And is there stuff, actually coach me a little bit. Is there stuff that you wish you would have known about podcast growth in the first year that you didn't learn until years 2, 3, 4?
Well, some of the lessons I'll experience share with you. One will be relevant. The other one you can't really do anymore. But when product came out, when it was really popular, maybe 10 years ago or so, it's still decent, but they had a podcast section. And we actually gamed the crap out of that. So every single day, it would be marketing school and growth everywhere at the top. Every single day. We just have people from our team upvote, right? And it'd just be at the top. And it's funny because Product Hunt actually created a podcast where they would talk about the top podcasts. And it was growth everywhere, marketing school every day. And so that started to grow. But, I would just say that even back then, and what this is still relevant today, is YouTube actually has discoverability. And so once you get going on YouTube and the algorithm sees you in their good graces, where the way I like to break this down is YouTube wants to look at you as a good employee. If you're consistent, if you talk about the same things, you have good retention numbers, good click-through rate numbers, more so good retention numbers. There will be a time where they just unlock the gates for you, but in the very beginning, you're just struggling. You're struggling maybe for a year or so, 6 months, 12 months, whatever it is exactly. And I would say now my personal YouTube is starting to move again, and then the marketing school one is like starting to move too. But even the marketing school one, we've had that one for over a year, and we've been constantly tweaking that one. It's I would say that Neil's YouTube channel, my personal YouTube channel, that's where the views come in. But we're very bullish on where the marketing school podcast YouTube channel is going to go.
Yeah. What are the things that you do in-house versus outsourced? Like because you guys are doing a lot. Like you have basically video first podcasts. There's also go on Spotify and all the other streaming platforms. You're clipping stuff. Often I'll see like, you'll have posts on Twitter that will come, out of videos that I've seen you do. Like there's a whole, it's like an operation, right? There's a lot going on there.
Yeah. So I would say, for the marketing school podcast right now, we probably spend around $6,000 or $7,000 a month. So it's not crazy, but it's still, it's still money. And so
what is that on? Oh yeah.
Yeah. We have a videographer who comes in, Noah. And Neil and I, we live like half a mile away from each other. So we're recording once a week, in person. And so that costs us like $500 each time. And then we have, call it maybe 3 editors. And then these are people that are offshore, near shore. So like in LATAM, some are in like Ireland, some are in the Philippines. And the various costs on that one, maybe it's call anywhere from like $1,000 to $1,500 a month for each of those. And then we have short form editors as well. And then we have a thumbnail person too. And I would say, and then there's software costs, and then we have a brand manager too. And so those things kind of all blend together. And that's what it costs specifically just for marketing school.
Yeah, that makes sense. So like, as I get this thing started right now, we're going to have, somebody's kind of setting up the socials. We have an editor who's going to kind of do all the trailers and editing and stuff. Is that like, because I'm a big fan of also like, I don't want to overdo it in the beginning, right? I think it's good to be very, very good at a few things, right? Rather than try to, let's do every single thing we possibly could. Should I have more people in our stack or tools in our stack than that?
Yeah. So you're asking about, sorry, I just want to make sure I get this question right. So you're asking about, should you be investing? Are you over investing right now? Is that what you're asking?
I think like, is there stuff that we should do from day one that we're not? So like, we don't have a plan for it. So things will go on Spotify, they'll go on YouTube. We're probably not going to clip in the beginning. Yeah. Like, is that a mistake? Yeah. Should everybody doing a video first podcast, like, oh no, you have to clip immediately?
No, I think you should focus on getting long form right first. I think what matters is YouTube. So podcast might be your pillar, and then YouTube specifically will be the main delivery. And I think you should focus on first 30-second retention. I think Greg Eisenberg does a good job of that. Oh, you're going to learn this. Stay till the end of this. And then it's just an interview, right? I think, having a good thumbnail, look at his, they're all AI driven thumbnails. And so you don't need to pay a lot of money for that. I do think outlining goes a long way. And so what I mean by that is, our brand manager will basically research like 7 different topic ideas. I'll highlight 2, and then I'll make a loom on those 2 that I like. And each loom might take, 5, 10, 15 minutes or so. Then she'll create short outlines and bullet point. And then I'll go to the studio. I'll walk over to the studio over here, which is another thing I pay for leveling up, to record those. And these are, we're talking 10, 15 minute videos. That are cut down from like 30 minutes of recording. So I think after starting the outlining, I think we start to see a lot more lift because we're being a lot more intentional. So YouTube's a lot more competitive now. So your packaging, which is your thumbnail, your headline, first 30 seconds, it matters. And open loops and things like that. Like all those things I didn't want to pay attention to before, I pay a lot more attention to now.
How do you get because you'll do these YouTube videos, and some of them are extremely tactical. Like I'm watching you like use Manus to create, copywriting guidelines for like SEO articles, and like actually going through that. So you're saying like a brand manager is helping you outline those things. Generally those folks, they're not a subject matter expert like you are. How are you looping that person in a way that is tactical?
So she'll come up with the initial headline, and then I'll make the loom where I talk about what I want to talk about. And within that loom, then she makes the outline based on what I want to talk about. And that actually goes a long way. And I actually think a lot of this stuff you can AI now. So that's the answer to the question, but I want to give you one more thing. So at this creator pickleball thing, there's a guy that I knew, and I was like, why are you at this creator thing? Like, what are you trying to get out of it? Right. And he's like, I'm trying to meet people to interview for my podcast. And so I went to eat dinner with my CTO, and then I was like, I need to go back and talk to that guy real quick because he's about to move to San Francisco. And I was like, okay. And I'm in LA. So I was like, look, I'm just going to experience share with you. Like I've been interview podcasting for a very long time. And so when I first started, the intention was great because I was trying to learn, and it actually led to more business and was tied to the type of business that I did. And I enjoyed those conversations. But maybe call it 2-3 years ago, when I would interview people that have great audiences, and some of my long form videos would get 400, 500, 600,000 views or so. People talk about dating, people talk about marriage, people talk about personal finance and things like that.
So you had Vivian too, you had a bunch of people.
Yeah. And those are fine, right? But here's the thing. I actually enjoy talking to people about business. I don't enjoy talking about those things on a podcast. And the problem is I get the views, but you start chasing the views and you start falling into the wrong game. And so as my thing now is like, sure, I still might do interviews from time to time, but I'm only going to talk to business people about topics that I'm interested in. And because the other problem with podcasting too is you tend to put the other people on a pedestal. And so what the problem with that is it might not help you with business, right? And so again, I got all the views, but in the last couple of years, and some of these would get like, these shorts would get like 7-8 million views or so, right? But that was good for the ego, but not good for business.
Yeah, there's I can't remember. I think it's Hormozi has talked a lot about. So Alex Hormozi has done this huge pivot in his content where he was going very top of funnel, mindset and all this stuff. He still does a little bit of that, but they've totally transitioned to being tactical with respect to business. And the KPI that he's found useful actually are the YouTube RPMs. How much you're paid for the advertising is a really strong signal of the value of the audience. And so that to him is a success, even if they're not getting the most views on any particular video.
Yeah. I remember he brought that up. And then I didn't find that correlated when I did look at the RPMs, because it made sense what he said, right? And it might work for him, but I just took a look at it. It didn't quite correlate. I will say that Neil and Hormozi, if I'm not mistaken, I know at least Neil, they use this one agency, and Neil ended up firing that agency recently, and he was paying them like $25,000 a month. And the problem with that one, and we both called it out in the beginning, was that these agencies, they want you to go for wide TAM content, and maybe 80% of the time, it is still very much how to get rich, right? I learned it's to make $1 million in like whatever amount of time. That gets the views, but I could tell it was really irritating Neil. And then Neil was like, let me just spend a $25,000 a month. You don't need to do it, right? I was like, oh, sounds good. So he did it. And then like clockwork, he said he would basically probably not work with them in 3 months or so. What we learned from that process though was, one, the outlining piece that I just mentioned to you. But the second piece is their editing. If you look at Neil's channel's editing now and my channel's editing, you can see there's a lot of jump cuts and things like that. And that I think it does help with retention. So
yeah. What if I were to look at like what you were doing the day before a podcast versus an hour before the podcast, what would I see? What's your process?
So for like marketing school or for interviewing someone or what?
Let's do both. I want to start with interviewing because that's a lot of what we'll do here.
Yeah. I mean, and I told this guy the other day, I was like, the problem with the interview, and actually I was talking to Neil about this yesterday, because he had an interview podcast where he'd interview CMOs, and he doesn't like doing that. The problem with interviewing is a lot of the work's on you, Nathan. So you're preparing for maybe hours at a time, and you have to keep the conversation going. You have to ask good questions. I can just wing it, right? Because you're asking me at the end of the day. So there's a lot more pressure on you, which I don't necessarily like if it's not a business conversation. If I'm excited about the conversation, like, hell yeah, I'll do the preparation. So that's what I would say. And so, yeah, there are some nerves, like you have to get ready. And like when I had Gary Vee on, or like, some of these other people on, like, or Seth Godin, right? Like you have to, sure, I look up to these people or have learned a lot from these people, but at the same time too, it's like, I have to make sure that I'm not fanboying. And so there's that. So that's the first one. The second one with marketing school is easy. So what I do and what Neil, we have a sheet with ideas, and it's a very simple spreadsheet where it's like, okay, here's the 10 or 15 things I think are interesting to talk about. And then he'll list like 10 or 15 things too. And we just pick from the list. And when we were recording yesterday, I mean, basically 45 minutes in, we had only gotten to 2 topics, because now what we're doing is we're mainly sharing our experiences. And sure, we still react to some headlines, but we're sharing a lot of the experiments that we're running, and we're going back and forth. That's made it a lot more fun, and that's our excuse to hang out. So that one I would say is a lot less pressure, because it's just a real conversation and us talking about things that interest us.
Yeah, I like that. I'm thinking about it in the back of my mind. I think a lot of what I'll do in the beginning is these interviews, because I I enjoy these. I mean, one, I think they can be quite tactical, and then also not every interview will be this way, but I've always loved. Do you know Andrew Warner like personally decently?
Yeah.
So Andrew's great, and one thing, I don't know if you've ever been to his place in Austin, but like Andrew loves, a 9 p.m. break out a couple whiskeys, and he's a big, deep, meaningful conversation. And nobody loves a DMC more than Andrew Warner. And so I found that stuff gives me energy. But I do feel like we should do some kind of like tactical content. So this stuff is helpful.
Well, by the way, I think if you model what Greg Eisenberg does, and so I think it's great that he interviews some people, but you mix it up with things that you're teaching, for example, so newsletter stuff that you might be teaching. And I think that will go a long way because there's a gap in that type of content right now. So.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, tactics in interviews. What about, so in the outline and the content ideas, how are you, so I've seen some stuff you talk about how like you have a bunch of AI shit that's basically joining your calls to help you surface content ideas. What are the tools? What's the workflow? Because right now, me coming up with content ideas for my newsletter, for any of this stuff, I have dinner by myself on Sunday night. I look at my calendar. I look at my emails, my meetings and stuff. I'll put some stuff in the cloud, but it's largely a very manual process of coming up with content ideas right now.
Yeah. So I'll give you the Lindy thing you're talking about, and I'll talk about how I think about it at the moment. But so we use Lindy.ai, which is like an agentic workflow product. It's a little different than N8N or Zapier or Make. Those are the workflow things people like talking about. It's different in that you can create these workflows, but they can reason at each step. And so what we had to do was when we have internal meetings, leadership team meetings or things like that, or higher stake meetings or internal marketing meetings, we have a Lindy note taker that joins these meetings and it looks for compelling content ideas. And the prompt is basically, help me find 3 compelling content ideas from this conversation and rate the virality of each one on a scale of 1 to 10. Give me 3 hooks for each one and give me like the body copy. And oftentimes it'll come up with interesting things like when I was out for 2 weeks, one of the headlines was, there's always chaos in business, but it's often the leaders who are absorbing all the chaos, right? And then that gives you something, right? Like you can, that's something to work with. And because the thing is, in these meetings, these are higher stakes. And when you're not thinking about content creation, your best stuff usually comes out. And so that's the reason for having that note taker in there. And
this, by the way, I'm not even bullshitting you. I have that phrase written down because you said when you so also like, it's not like Lindy's just giving you a bunch of useless stuff, right? It's pulling something, I guess, that I thought to write down because I thought it was quite good. That's quite interesting.
Yeah. And so we have that in there. And then I will say I kind of discovered this week, I think. GenSpark.ai is probably the first time I've seen an AI do exceptional content for X and LinkedIn. First time ever. And what I do now in GenSpark, it has this super agent. I have it watch one of my YouTube videos. It watched a YouTube video and I'll share my X profile and say, hey, I want you to write in this style over here. And then there's one prompt. I want you to create a 10 out of 10, LinkedIn post or an X post. And I was looking at the numbers this morning, and the LinkedIn post that I just threw up randomly this week, most people don't know it's generated by AI, are getting double or triple the reach of my other posts. And I'm not saying my LinkedIn is amazing by any means, but I'm like, that's somewhere to start with.
You have 50,000 followers, you're doing something right.
I mean, it's not even about the followers anymore. It used to be, and whenever I used to publish, I would get like tens of thousands of views. Now it's like, lucky if it's a couple thousand or so. But my point is, now with GenSpark, you can tie it in and have it do 90% of the work for you. And that's something I'm going to explore more this weekend. So that's a new thing.
So both the Lindy workflow and GenSpark, is that stuff like, because I'm not, I'm a drag and drop Zapier guy. Like I'm not real smart. Can I go do that? Or is it kind of like the N8N where it's like, I got to find an N8N guy?
It's very easy. Lindy's pretty easy. I would say that using GenSpark is just like going into ChatGPT or using Manus or something like that. Yeah. And then I'll give you one more. I use Overlap, but there's other tools like Opus. They'll help you find moments, clippable moments. And then, N8N, you can pay basically pennies on the dollar, and you can just use one of the templates, like the workflows that they have, and just have them find the right moments for you. I found that to be decently helpful, but I still just really don't want to have to go into these things and log in. The lazy way of doing this, Nathan, is take this video, and take the link, drop it into Gemini and look for the key moments. And then you can just pull those into like X or LinkedIn. I still find myself doing that more than using tools like overlap to find the best videos and then have to download them. And it takes more work in my mind.
Yeah, I hate downloading shit. So this Lindy thing, just really quick, just to tie the knot on this. So it'll sit on my calls. It'll come with content ideas. Where is it dumping that? Do I have to go to Lindy? Can I get that in my Slack?
Yeah,
that's where I really like.
You can have it Slack to you. I have it emailed to me, but you can have it Slack to you as well. You can do whatever you want. I
love it. You have another thing I saw. You're using OpenAI to audit your time.
Yeah.
How does that work? How do I do that?
So OpenAI now has these MCP connectors, and what you can do is you can connect it with your Google Calendar. You can do this with Claude as well, but the first time I tried connecting Claude with my Google Calendar, it didn't do the job. But the cool thing is OpenAI has deep research. So what you do is you have to go to the website, actually, OpenAI's website, ChatGPT's website, and you switch it to deep research, and then you turn on a connector to your Google Calendar. And you just say, for example, hey, I want you to audit the last 6 months of my time, put it into a table, tell me where I've been spending too much of my time, or just show me a percentage, how it's been going each month and how the percentage is going up or down. And then because ChatGPT has a working memory of you talking to it all the time, it knows what your priorities are, it knows what your problems are. You say, okay, based on everything we workshop, how should I be spending my time, right? And at least it strategizes with you and gives you somewhere to work off of in terms of how you might want to optimize your greatest resource.
What surprised you about where you were spending your time?
I didn't really if anything, I probably want to spend more time on recruiting. So my time on recruiting has gone up over the last couple months or so, just because we're shifting into being more aggressive now based on how things are going. And so I'm like, that's good, but I want to spend more time there. I was spending too much time on internal meetings. And so there's a period of time, maybe in late 2023 and all of 2024, where I was kind of ruling with an iron fist and being involved with everything just to tighten things up and lock in the culture, right? Now I know I can start to slowly back off a little bit, but still, run towards wherever the bigger problems are. But that is something that gave me the confidence to know that, hey, now is the time, because I stress tested that basically the last 2 weeks.
The time audits themselves, is that all? It's a fairly manual process. Like you're going into ChatGPT each time. It's not sending it to you, as an email. Like I can't get an email. It's like, hey Nathan, dude, have you seen your week? Look at how much time you fucking wasted, you maniac.
You can.
It's not going to do that.
Eventually, you can, right? Because these these MCP connectors, you can open it up in Zapier or N8N or whatever, or Lindy, and you can have it repeat, or you can set a ChatGPT task for you. You just can't do it right now, but for sure that's coming. Yeah, I want it to constantly audit my HubSpot every single week and tell me, hey, where are we not responding quickly enough? What are we not doing? Which leads have we not touched for the last 30 days or so? Hey, who's actually being productive, who isn't? And just a constant report, because most people aren't going to want to give you those reports because most people don't want to be held accountable.
Yes. Okay. So good point. One thing I'm trying to do is have more oversight over my team day to day and like their output without being over the shoulder, right? I saw some stuff you were talking about, like you have things that are also auditing their output. And maybe, I don't know if it's even getting sent to you, but it sounds like it's at least getting sent to them, like reviews of their work. Mm-hmm. What is that? What are the tools? What's that workflow?
So this is Lindy again. And I would say we built the V0 of this, where it's a coach that we call it the daily stand-up. They're the daily accountability coach. And this is another Lindy workflow. And so every day people are required to put in their number one priority, highest leverage priority. And where? They also need to talk about, it goes into Slack. So it's like a thing they fill out, it goes into Slack. And then also, what are the 3 things that they got done yesterday, right? And so it's just constant kind of, what's the blocker? What's the one thing to celebrate? Like things like that, right? Just to keep things moving. Now, I'm like, okay, well, why don't we have it coach people up? And so let's say, Nathan, you might say your top priority yesterday was, researching for a podcast or whatever. So this thing is basically going to say, well, Nathan, that's not a very high leverage thing in terms of, getting X, Y, and Z done in terms of like your priorities. I'm going to give you a 6 out of 10 on that one. Right. And it's public to everyone. And then at the end of the month, we have a leaderboard showing how everyone has rated and how consistent people are. And some people on Twitter are like, F that, whatever. But then I have a lot of founders behind the scenes, like message, hey, how do you do that? How do you do that? Right. And so the way I see this is that this is new work that we couldn't do before, where you might have a coach for daily accountability stand-up. You might have a coach for how people run their sales meetings, client services. You might have a coach for internal like L10 meetings, these EOS meetings that people run. Most people they don't know how to run these EOS meetings. They might have read the book a little bit, but they need coaching, right? And so if you just refine the prompt using O3 or Claude or whatever, and you dump it in, you have something that's giving concise feedback to everyone. And then once we started implementing this, the next week, everyone locked in more. And it's very clear, by the way, whoever is sucking on the scores, they actually are sucking within the org too. And I'll tell you right now, there is someone that's on a PIP right now. And typically they score very low on this.
This is amazing, dude. Okay. So just to recap. So people are filling out some kind of form. It's either a type form or some Slack native form. It's getting pushed into a single channel with their responses.
Yep.
And what are you asking? You're basically asking like, what did you get done today? And then what are your big priorities for the next day? Are those the two, are those the questions you would recommend, like me asking my team?
So the questions we use are, one is, what are the top 3 things you got done yesterday? And what is the number one highest leverage thing you're working on today? So we want to see how people prioritize. And you'll find that most people don't know how to prioritize. And so this is basically bumper, like guardrails to help people work on the highest leverage thing. Because time, that's what you're paying for. So
yeah. Okay. So it's ingesting that. And then it's basically assessing that. Like, oh, this is a low leverage thing. You should not be making this one of your top 3. And then you gamify it because there's a leaderboard.
Yeah. And awesome. What we want to do ultimately, Nathan, is on these leaderboards, we want to maybe have rewards, right? Maybe there's a grand prize winner or whoever's creating cool workflows and things like that. We want to gamify all of this. So I think all of this is going to connect within our, this AI fluency program that we're working on creating.
Yeah, there's a e-commerce company called Loop. They do like earplugs and stuff, but they have this, but for ROAS. So all growth marketers are stacked ranked publicly based on their scale of spend and the ROAS in that spend. And so they've totally, I don't know if they have prizes or whatever, but it's cool because there's this kind of like, hey, I want to be number one.
Yeah.
Important lesson in incentives, right? So like gamifying this, like making it public, like that, without you having to probably do a whole ton of things, and now it changes somebody's mentality about how they approach the work.
And by the way, it's going to quickly weed out people that don't want to be a part of this culture, which is a great thing, right? And so I think this is probably one of the coolest things that we've done so far this year, and we're just going to try to refine the crap out of it.
Yeah. What else? Is there anything else AI really like, damn, this is killing it, and that we haven't talked about?
Well, I mean, this week, I just feel like if you're not having an epiphany every single week right now, you're just behind. And so Perplexity Labs this week. Well, now that I can actually storyboard within 9 minutes an entire ad that probably would have cost me tens of thousands of dollars or weeks to get done, I can now do that. And then I can take that, I can say, hey, by the way, with this storyboard, give me a couple prompts that I can use for VO3 for these 8-second things, and I can connect all the videos together, right? And now at least I have a working prototype, and I don't need to wait weeks or months or spend thousands of dollars to do it. And then I mentioned GenSpark.ai, that's this week as well. And so I think my whole thing on this is, if I were to give something that's actionable to everyone, is find the people that are around you. It could be a monthly Zoom where you're getting AI forward founders together and just talk about the cool things that you're working on, right? Or what I'm doing too is I'm trying to get AI forward dinners together, and we actually have a location here we can use in the Beverly Hills area. And that founder will let us do it all day, and we're just going to get 10 people probably every single month or so, and just rotate people in or out, and just try to get ahead of this stuff. Because the way I see this is, 1, it's really fun. 2, if I don't get ahead of it, I'm just going to be behind, and I don't want to be behind.
Yeah, I want to talk about that because I consider you and people like Nick Gray, Andrew Warner, you guys are like, you're like friend billionaires. Like, you have an incredible network of friendships, people who deeply care about you, who are in your corner. What is your, like, I know you've done a bunch of events for a long time. What's your like event stack? Like, how did you start getting these communities together?
Yeah. This is interesting because I'm doing a funeral tomorrow for my mom, right? And the thing is, I would say that I had her write in this keepsake book and all her stories. And then there's a question in there. It says, what is your greatest accomplishment, right? And it says, I expected her to say something about her career, but it was her friends and family, like unequivocally like friends and family, right? And so I learned a lot of that from her, because the thing is, you at the very end, you look at who's going to gather around you, right? Your friends, family. Like, we all gathered around her. Like, there's a lot of people coming for her tomorrow. And the thing is, because I learned through her, like a lot of my friends are coming tomorrow, which I thought was a weird thing. Like, why are there so like Neil's like, oh, let me know when the funeral is. I was like, what the hell? Like, why do you want to go? Like, it didn't make sense to me, right? But now that's happening, right? So all that to say is, one, I think if you're starting from scratch, when I was 26, 27 years old, let's rewind, even 23 years old. So I remember I called an entrepreneur, and this guy's name's Dave Kirpin. He had an agency called Likeable. And I was like, so what's the highest impact thing? And I don't even know why he took my call, but he's just paying it forward. So I was like, what's the highest impact thing you did as an entrepreneur? He's like, oh, joining EO. I was like, what's EO? He's like, joining entrepreneurs organization. And then what clicked for me in that moment was like, one, I was like, oh, I don't know if I ever hit $1 million in revenue. Like I work for a company right now. Right. And so, but like 3 years later, I was an EO. But the whole point of that is you want to join peer groups. But even when you have nothing going on, like 26 years old, I still wasn't an EO yet. I started gathering marketing leaders together, and I said, hey, do you want to come? Like, because I would go to these networking things and I would meet these people. And then I would say, hey guys, let's do it at my house. Like I created an agenda, okay, the whole hot seat thing. Like, hey, tell us what's working for you right now. How's business going for you? How's life going? And then Nathan, you might say, oh, like I'm struggling to hit these numbers right now. And then everyone goes around the table sharing, right? So you can create that forum on your own. It's not like you need to have a lot of money for it. But I started doing these small little get-togethers, and then I started doing happy hours, and then I started doing mini events and things like that. And by the way, I would get sponsors in the beginning, but you learn these things by sucking in the beginning, and eventually you get better. And then they became masterminds, and then I started speaking at other things. And the thing I've learned is always that you don't necessarily need to be the center of attention, but as long as you're the connector, eventually everything's going to come back to you.
Yeah, there's a guy you like a lot, Jason Gaynard, I think, who's like a master of masterminds and events, and he makes very specific choices, I think, in masterminds events that you wouldn't think to do, but create really good events. So he does there's like a $25,000 prize for the best speaker whenever he has speakers at events. He does, they're very high priced. You buy a ticket at events, you curate the right kind of people. He does these custom thank you videos. What's your version of that for like small format stuff, like the master, the mini kind of forum, if you will, with a couple friends versus the bigger stuff that you're hosting?
Yeah, I'll kind of give you a breakdown here. So it's so one group we have is called the Illuminati. So we have people like people like to talk about Syed Balkhi. There's Patrick Campbell's in there. There's like Al Doan. This guy has this quilting company. So we have a great group of people in there.
Is that the guy who bought the town?
Yeah,
who bought that guy's. Did you come? Who came up with the name, by the way?
We were just, we were in Tulum in 2017, 2018. We just called it Illuminati. But every year we'll get together and go to somewhere cool. So this past February, we're in close to Tulum. We're in Bhutan, which is like a nice resort area. And so we'll go to a nice resort area. We'll be playing basketball. We'll be working out together. We'll be eating great food. But we'll also be talking about each other's problems. And so now we decided we're going to jack that up to twice a year. And I randomly started that on my own whim in 2017, 2018. I said, let's go to Cabo. And I got a group together, right? It took us maybe a couple years to refine the group, and now I think we have our core group. But it's like, I think 8's always a really good number, right? And so, Nathan, if you can grab a group together, this is like no different than an EO forum or a YPO forum, right? You share kind of your problems there, whether personal or professional. So, and then everyone pays out of pocket. Nobody's trying to profit from this. I think that's a really important thing. Like, you can try to make it into a business. I don't recommend that. So that's one, right? The second piece is, when I was in EO, or I'm in YPO now, I have my forum where you meet once a month and you get together. You do talk more personal problems. You do talk about your business problems too. But like, this a week ago, we were in, we went to a law office to learn about estate planning and trust and things like that, right? And so you'll do like cool local events. So like that's that. Like you are paying a membership fee, and you are paying to go to a retreat, and you are meeting more frequently. And I get, I would say every group that you're in, you get something different from. So like my Illuminati group, it's more about SaaS. It's more about internet businesses, right? I would say my YPO forum, it's a mix of different businesses, but I get more different perspectives from people running different businesses. I'm in a YPO SaaS forum. In that one, it's purely SaaS. That's it, right? And then I would say that Neil and I, we used to have a mastermind together, and we would charge 25 grand, right? So it was not a cheap thing. And I think at the high point, maybe like 125 people came. to the thing. And we decided that it's fun, but it's just a lot of work. And so, and then eventually I parlayed that skill into running this YPO Global Marketing Summit, which we had about 200 people or so. So, and I got paid nothing for that, right? And that's a whole nother conversation. But I would just say that main thing here is that your skills compound. I went from having a bag of chips and maybe like 6 people at my house to compounding up to knowing how to do larger events.
Yeah. Question for you on the smaller format events. What is the setup of that night or day, the type of questions you're asking that lead to like the best conversations? So like Andrew Wilkinson, as an example, like he hosts, like he has a forum of a couple guys he meets with, and like they have a specific cadence. It's like, I think it's multiple days, and each day is like a half day on one person, right? So 3 or 4 hours are quite literally like he's really, really hard on it. And that's like one way to do it. What's your way there?
Yeah. So, I mean, what he's doing is basically like a forum retreat. There's different ways to do it, but I would say there's a lot of tactics here. But when we do like the Tuluminati thing, everyone basically got called 90 minutes to 2 hours or so. But the other thing is, because we're spending 2, 3, 4 days together, we're talking about business the whole time. Mostly what we're talking about is business, right? There is some personal stuff in there, but there's just so much time to workshop things like, oh, Nathan, by the way, after your 2 hour, we put you on the hot seat for 2 hours. I might say, hey, by the way, I found this. Oh, you should talk to this person over here. So we continue to workshop together. I would say that once we go to dinner, like one of the exercises that my friend David came up with is called the 3, 2, 1. So imagine you're at a dinner table. It's 8 to 10 of you. And so 3 would be 3 big things that happen in your life, right? So we might go around the table. Okay, Nathan, 3 big things that happen to you. Okay. You start to get more intimate, right? And then it's like 2 might be 2 important people in your life, right? Or you could change it to something else, like 2 random things that happen to you or 2 random things about you, right? And then you go around the table again. So, and then everyone gets like, call it like a minute or 2 minutes to answer. Then the one thing would be, one big decision that you made, right? But you start to learn these things that you wouldn't learn about other people. And it's almost like a mini lifeline, and it gets a lot more intimate. So there's a lot of these tactics. I know Jason likes to do rosebud thorn. And so when we're meeting these people once a month or so, I might be like, Nathan, what are the roses for the month? Last month, these are all the things that are going well. Buds might be budding opportunities, right? Things that have potential. And then thorns would be pain in the butt, right? And each person gets 3, 4, 5 minutes to update. So there's a lot of these tactical things that you can do. But the most important thing, I think, is getting with a group that meets your values, where you have the same interests. And then eventually you'll figure out what format works for you.
Awesome. I love it, dude. I feel like we just like wound you up and let you go on espresso. This is incredible. I have like a billion notes I'm going to write from this. I appreciate you doing this.
Yeah, you can dump it into Notebook LM too and get the next little briefing. So
I will. Cool, man. All right. That's the podcast.